Andy, thanks so much for being here with me at ASTA's 134th Annual Convention.
Sure, Julie. It's always a pleasure to meet with you and the Seed World crowd while we're here.
There's a lot happening, both in the seed industry as well as at the convention. Tell me, what's top of mind for you right now?
We really have about three things that we're focused on. Well, more than three, but three key ones that we're really looking at now. Plant breeding innovations, when you look at breeding techniques and how breeding has evolved, is a huge issue. How are the government going to look at gene editing techniques like CRISPR-Cas? How do they look at it domestically? How do we look at it internationally? So that's a big project. Encompassed in that is probably a subcategory would be communications. How do we talk to people about plant breeding and how it's evolved and how it's a natural evolution and there's nothing to be scared of and breeders know what they're doing. And so that's probably number one. When we look at number two, seed treatment continues to be a really great area in our industry. Educating EPA on what it means and the precise nature of it, and also talking about the new opportunities that are out there in biologicals, really enhancing that ability to have a strong germination, strong early origination of the plant from the seed. And then third, as we look at it, we're looking at the conservation components of seed and where they play in this. Cover crops, pollinator mixes, and others as the grower community look at sustainability. And as the food chain looks at sustainability, where does that start? It starts with rotations, it starts with buffer strips, it starts with cover crops in the winter, and where does that come from? It comes from the seed companies. And so how do we help develop that program, those programs, develop that opportunity, and ensure that farmers are planting good, high quality, professionally produced seed? So those are really the three issues that we're juggling right now on our plate.
And what specifically, if you can provide a couple examples, is ASTA doing around each of those areas?
Well, when we look at plant breeding, it's several layers. We've got to work with the ag and food value chain first off. They need to understand where gene editing is, how breeding has evolved, and how it's advantageous to both the agriculture production or the farmer community, as well as the food community and ultimately the consumers. And the value chain has been very supportive of our efforts. They have gone with us to work with the administration, the regulatory agencies, and the Hill to communicate where we think this path needs to go. It really is kind of two paths that split somewhat. You can use gene editing to produce transgenics, and you still have a process to do pre-market approvals and the regulatory process in Part 340, or it also goes to variety development. Just like we develop varieties for other breeding techniques like chemical mutagenesis or irradiation, gene editing is a new tool for doing that. So it's a big communications project, it's a big legislative or policy project, and it's also a big international project because we need to make sure that our international trading partners are also treating policy the same way as we do in the U.S., so we don't have that patchwork we have with biotech. When we look at seed treatment, it's a lot the same. Is how do we educate the regulatory community about what we're doing? So we're working with the federal level, EPA and USDA, and we're working with the state level, our commissioners of ag and the other regulatory bodies, to educate them about what seed treatment means, how it's evolving, the technology's getting better, we have better polymers, we have fluency agents that are reducing dust or potential for dust out of the planter boxes. We recently held a demonstration day with, we had 45 EPA staff and USDA staff out to Chip Bowen's farm, former president of the Corn Growers Association, and we showed them demonstrations on what precision planting is with treated seed. And so it was a great opportunity for them to interact with farmers and understand why they use treated seed. And then that last one is we realize that cover crops are going to be a major issue in this farm bill and going into the future. Farmers have come to us and expressed the concerns that they have with respect to things like the Bourne Waterworks lawsuit and things like that, and understanding that impact or that interaction between the farming operation and local watersheds and others, and how can they work to reduce any impact impacts there, but also improve the organic matter in the soil. You do that with cover crops, you do that with other production methods. So working with our cover crop community, our pollinator mixes and natives communities to reach out to grower organizations to talk about the benefits of those cover crops and the different mixes and opportunities to benefit the pollinators, but also benefit the soil beneath our feet and return some of that organic matter into the soil to improve crops in the future.
So not only do you have multiple issues that you're working on, all of these issues are very much multifaceted, and there are a lot of players involved and people to get on the same page. Another one that's on my radar screen and has caused quite a bit of consternation within the agricultural community lately with the Trump administration is trade. And what do his policies mean for agriculture? And I want to hone into the seed industry. What are you hearing and what are your thoughts?
Well, overall, we understand the concern the administration has with trade. The U.S. is always very welcoming in most cases in trade, and so we may be a little bit more tolerant of some abuses in trade agreements and may not have taken as strong actions in the past as we should have. Looking at that in the whole, though, we look at countries like Canada and Mexico. They're major trading partners for the seed industry. We produce a lot of counter-seasonal seed in Mexico and bring it back to the U.S. We ship a lot of seed to Canada. So there are a lot of flows back and forth, and we have to the administration has to realize, and we've communicated to them, as we look at trade agreements and modifications or signing new ones, we first off have to do no harm. Those are markets that we rely on. We need to be able to go to other markets and find germplasm we can bring back to the U.S. and breed for certain characteristics that may be more prevalent in another country. And so all of those factors that come into play with producing seed in the global marketplace, we have to have that certainty of trade and movement. And so we've relayed that to the current administration. We will keep doing that. We also support our customers. When you think about the amount of corn and soybeans and produce products that are shipped around the world and grown here in the U.S., we can't have those markets shut down on us. They're very important to our agriculture community in the U.S. So it's that, again, somewhat multifaceted. We've got to have that ability to move seed globally with certainty and not get it stopped at the ports or destroyed. And we also have to support our customers who produce those products that move globally and are their livelihoods.
Right. And in those conversations, have the recipients been understanding of that information or receptive? And do you feel positive moving forward about how agriculture and especially the seed industry will be treated?
I think so. I think at first it was a little slow until Secretary Perdue came in at USDA, coming from Georgia, a state that does a fair amount of exports itself and is very proud of what they do. He can relate that message to the president very well, and I think he has, and he did in the case of NAFTA. And so as we go forward, some more support there, additional appointees in the Department of Agriculture, in the U.S. Trade Rep's office, and other places around the administration will help to carry that message that ag is truly part of the foundation or the foundation of our exports in this country. And we need to make sure that we don't injure that in any policy going forward.
It's really quite an incredible message. Another issue that I have my eye on is research and funding. Yeah. And tomorrow there's a committee meeting on that. How does the research and funding impact ASTA's programs and the seed industry as a whole?
Well, there are a number of places where we're touched by the funding that comes through USDA, through the Farm Bill, through Agricultural Research Service and NIFA and other agencies there that do research and funding for research. A lot of this goes through our land grant institutions. And so you think of the various factors that impact the various areas that the industry is impacted. It's everything from our future employees that are trained at the land grant institutions and come out with a degree in botany or biology or a PhD in genetics. They're trained there. They may also go work at USDA Ag Research Service for a number of years on special projects. USDA works through the National Seed Health System at Iowa State to help us develop detection methods for certain phytosanitary issues. I can go on and on and on. There's nothing more important to the seed industry than having that capacity out there to be able to do research on pest and disease, on soil infertility, on on genetics and being able to map the genome of certain plants and being able to see where the positive characteristics of that plant family are and where the negatives are, and how do we take advantage of the positive and try to downplay or eliminate the negative. And all of those factors come into play because of research and the research we've done for centuries. And so that funding is vital as we go forward. I think our goal for this year is to keep what we have.
To maintain
What we have. It really is, Julie. You think about, we do have a budget deficit, and we've got to deal with that, and the president and his people are trying to deal with that. But you also can't cut the legs out from underneath our research community. Mm-hmm. So how do we at least maintain, and then how do we as an industry, seed industry, grower community, others, food industry, look at what does our research community need to look like in the future? We know that there are some duplications out there that may need to be addressed. There are some facilities that may need to be closed because it's not worth trying to refurbish them, or they are duplicative also, and it's expensive. So we need to look longer term. What does this research industry look like to benefit the agriculture community in the future?
Is there a core group of people that are already kind of honing in on that, or is that something that still needs to be pursued?
No, there is a number of people looking at it, and to some extent I would argue that there's probably a little too many because you're looking at it too disparate. Mm-hmm. But there are a number of groups that are out there. The Riley Memorial Foundation, it's got some Wendy Winterstein with Iowa State University is a co-chair on there. Chris Novak with the corn growers is on there as well. And they're really looking at what does that research component need to look like and the importance of it. I participate in the National Council of Food and Agriculture Research, and it is essentially all the professional organizations and the grower organizations supporting intramural and extramural research at our land grants and at USDA. But we're all trying to look at that long-term view of what does the research community look like for agriculture in the future, and how do we get the funds to take care of it? What's the public-private relationship and the partnerships there, and then where are the big issues that we need to try to get the funding to take care of?
Stepping away from policy briefly, what is it that keeps you awake at night? And then on the flip side, what are you most excited about? You know, what do you wake up kind of ginned to talk about or to tackle?
You know, it's probably the same issue when we look at it at ASTA. Right now, plant breeding innovation, breeding techniques is rapidly changing. Our understanding of the plant biology, the biome within the plant, and what makes it do what it does is just increasing, as we say, in a Moore's law-like pace. I think it's about every 18 months more estimated that the computing capacity of computers was changing, doubling every 18 months, I believe it was the formula. It's similar in the seed industry or in breeding community. We know more and more every day about plants, and with computing capacity, we're able to look at bioinformatics and look at genetic makeup and look at the gene map of a plant and really analyze where we need to target our breeding to maximize the potential in that plant. That's fascinating. It's great things going on. It's really, I would say, reinvigorated the plant breeding community. Oftentimes I go to conferences and a breeder speaks and they're almost giddy on the potential that's out there, and it's really neat to see young kids coming through the college programs going after breeding because they see that potential to make a difference, to help. The challenge of that is how do we make sure that it's handled policy-wise, and that's really what keeps me up at night. Are we doing all the right things in ASTA and with our partners to make sure that we are getting the message out there, we're communicating to the public, we're being transparent on what it is, and that people will listen to us, give us the ear, and trust that we are honest purveyors of what this capability is and what it means to the public. And our hope is that we're successful in that. But you always wonder, what did I forget to do? What did we not? Who did we not touch? Who did we not try to influence? And where is that stray, shot going to come from that we didn't anticipate? And how do we react to it? So that's really one of those that keeps us up at night. If we don't handle this properly, then those capabilities will not be able to be used uniformly across the industry, and that's going to be a shame for any future technology or techniques that come into play.